For centuries, we've been taught to believe that the mastery of fire was the key to human survival. It was the spark that ignited civilization, the very essence of our progress. But what if this widely accepted truth isn't entirely accurate? What if the greatest human survival secret isn't fire at all, but something we've completely overlooked? Imagine a world blanketed in ice, where early humans roamed the earth in the shadow of towering glaciers. The wind howled through barren landscapes, and the nights seemed endless. Survival was not guaranteed, and every day was a battle against nature's fury. Yet somehow, our ancient ancestors endured, thriving in ways that seem almost unimaginable. We know that the use of fire was a turning point in human history, a technological leap that allowed our ancestors to cook food, stay warm, and ward off predators. But before fire, how did they manage to survive the brutal conditions of the Ice Age? How did they keep themselves alive through the harshest winters when the world was an unforgiving place? The answers may lie hidden in the shadows of history, tucked away in the unexplored depths of prehistoric ingenuity. Consider this. What if our ancestors relied not on fire, but on an intimate understanding of their surroundings, the resources nature provided, and their ability to adapt to the environment in ways we've long forgotten? Perhaps survival wasn't about the warmth of a flame, not about the warmth of community, the creativity to craft tools from stone and bone, or the mastery of sheltering themselves against the relentless cold. Early humans were no strangers to harsh environments. As ice sheets stretched across much of the planet, hominids evolved in ways that would allow them to endure in ways we rarely consider. They had no fire to offer them protection, no comforting blaze to heat their bodies, yet they thrived. How? The answer may not lie in the invention of fire, but in the adaptability of the human body, the ingenious use of available resources, and perhaps most fascinating of all, the lost techniques that we have yet to fully understand. Early humans would have had to rely on everything the land could offer, from the thick hides of animals to the very earth beneath their feet. They used every resource available to them. The tools they created, tools that have long since disappeared from memory, were likely designed with one purpose: survival. Sharp stones for cutting, bone tools for scraping, and hides for warmth. These were the essentials that helped early humans endure. Yet, unlike the safety net of fire, these methods were temporary, delicate, and reliant on the environment in ways that would make us rethink how we understand early human resilience. As we dig deeper into the past, we begin to uncover the mystery of how our ancestors survived in ways we can scarcely imagine. The question lingers: could humans have lived for thousands of years without fire? Not by chance, but through the brilliance of adaptation and the forgotten art of survival. The path ahead leads us to the next layer of this mystery: how the human body itself may have been the greatest tool in this fight for survival. Could our biology have been honed by nature itself, adapting over generations to endure the harshest of climates? It's time to examine the biology behind human survival, a chapter written in the very bones of our ancestors. Before the warmth of fire, before it illuminated the darkness and protected our ancestors from the biting cold, early humans lived in a world that was unforgiving and unrelenting struggle against nature's fiercest forces. Imagine waking up every day in a landscape so barren, so vast, that survival itself was the ultimate challenge. There were no warm shelters, no comforting flames to curl up beside. There was only the raw, merciless world, as unpredictable as it was dangerous. During the Ice Age, the Earth was a much colder place. Massive glaciers covered vast swaths of the planet, and even in more temperate regions, the air was sharp and biting. The winter was an eternal enemy. Yet, the ancestors of modern humans managed to survive these brutal conditions. How? With no fire to keep them warm. How did they endure the freezing nights and the constant threat of exposure? Early humans weren't equipped with insulated clothing or the advanced technologies we rely on today, but they were resourceful, developing primitive tools and ingenious methods that allowed them to adapt to the harsh world around them. In the face of the relentless cold, they learned to use the animal skins that surrounded them, fashioning them into rudimentary clothing that offered some protection against the elements. Imagine their lives dressed in the fur of animals they hunted. These early humans used every part of the animal, its bones, its skin, its sinew, not just as sustenance, but as their armor against the unforgiving wilderness. The clothing, however vital, was just one piece of the puzzle. Early humans had to build shelter in environments that provided little to no warmth. Their dwellings, unlike the stone and brick houses we know today, were crude constructions, perhaps caves or makeshift huts made from branches, hides, and whatever materials nature provided. Yet, these shelters had to be carefully designed, for the smallest gap in the walls could allow the cold to seep in, putting their lives at risk. These early structures weren't just places to sleep. They were vital lifelines, a shield against the elements. The real mystery, however, lies in how humans survived without the one thing that seems so essential to us today: fire. Modern humans rely on fire to cook, to stay warm, and to keep predators at bay. It's a basic necessity, an element that has become synonymous with survival. Yet, for those early humans who had not yet mastered fire, the question remains: what unimaginable survival strategies did they have to rely on? With nothing but the harsh environment around them, how did they manage without fire's life-sustaining warmth? Perhaps, instead of focusing on fire, these humans relied more on their environments. Perhaps there were underground caves that maintained a constant temperature, or natural hot springs where they could take refuge. Maybe there was a knowledge of using stones to retain heat, for a strategy of grouping together for warmth in tight, sheltered areas. We may never fully understand the extent of their methods, but one thing is certain: early humans didn't merely survive, they thrived, adapting in ways we still struggle to comprehend. As we turn the page and move deeper into the story, the next question arises: could these primitive survivors have possessed certain biological traits that helped them endure these harsh realities? Did they possess an evolutionary advantage that allowed them to conquer a world so far removed from our own? The next chapter beckons us to explore just how far the human body could be shaped by the forces of nature itself. As the relentless cold of the Ice Age swept across vast stretches of the earth, the early humans who lived in its icy grip faced a dire question. How could they survive without the warmth of fire, without the comfort that modern humans take for granted? The answer lies not in external tools or strategies, but in the very biology of the human body itself. It's almost as if the human form had been designed to withstand the harshest conditions, built to endure a world that demanded more than mere survival. It required transformation. Could it be that the human body itself holds the key to our survival, even in the harshest conditions? The answer is more complex than we might first imagine, but it begins with the concept of natural selection. Over countless generations, our ancestors faced environments that tested their limits. Those who were best adapted to the cold, to scarcity, and to the fierce demands of the natural world were the ones who survived, passing on their traits to future generations. Slowly, over time, these traits became hardwired into our very existence. These adaptations would prove to be the foundation of human resilience. One of the first things we notice about early humans is their body composition. Unlike modern humans, who are designed for versatility in temperate climates, early humans evolved to endure extremes. Imagine the dense muscle mass and robust frames of Neanderthals. Its bodies were built not only to hunt and gather, but to retain heat in freezing conditions. Their short limbs and wide bodies were designed to conserve warmth, a feature still seen in some cold weather animals today. These stocky, powerful physiques allowed them to survive in temperatures that would have left any modern human shivering. But it wasn't just about size or shape. Early humans developed a kind of metabolic endurance that allowed them to thrive without the immediate relief of fire. Their ability to regulate body temperature in extreme conditions was crucial. While we now rely on blankets and central heating to keep warm, early humans were forced to rely on their internal mechanisms. They could go longer without food, using stored fat as fuel for heat. Their bodies were finely tuned to maintain energy in the face of adversity, keeping them alive even when food was scarce and warmth was a distant dream. This metabolic adaptation was not just an accident of nature, but a product of evolutionary necessity. The human body adapted to exploit whatever resources were available. In colder climates, early humans would have developed thicker skin, a protective barrier against the biting cold. Their hair, once lighter and less dense, may have thickened over time, creating an insulating layer to hold in warmth. This combination of physical traits, dense muscles, short limbs, and insulated skin allowed them to survive in environments that, today, would seem nearly impossible for us to endure without advanced technology. But as we look deeper, we realize that the human body's greatest asset in surviving without fire was not its physical form alone, but its adaptability. The very core of human evolution lies in the ability to adjust. Unlike other species, whose evolution followed rigid paths, we humans developed the remarkable ability to adapt not just to environmental changes, but to the changing world of survival itself. Early humans learned to work together to build shelters and craft tools from stone and bone. But these learned behaviors were not instinctive. They were the result of an evolving species capable of complex thought and strategic action. Even the brain, that essential organ that sets humans apart from other species, played a critical role in their survival. As early humans developed larger brains, they gained the capacity for abstract thought, planning, and problem solving. It was not just about enduring harsh conditions, it was about inventing ways to overcome them. While fire may have been the tool that sparked civilization, it was the human mind, honed over millennia, that created the strategies for survival before fire even existed. Consider, too, the remarkable way that early humans engaged with their environment. While fire provided heat and cooked food, long before that, early humans were already inventing new ways to manipulate the world around them. They used the earth itself as insulation, burrowing into caves or building makeshift shelters from animal hides and rocks. They learned how to create heat from friction, rubbing sticks together in an effort to spark a flame. But even when fire remained elusive, early humans did not relent. They adapted, changing their behavior, honing their instincts, and using what was at their disposal. Each discovery, each moment of ingenuity, propelled them forward in a fight for survival. These adaptations weren't limited to body composition or survival tactics alone, extended to the very way humans interacted with each other. Early humans depended heavily on social cooperation, another evolutionary trait that made them stand out from other species. It wasn't just about individual survival, it was about the survival of the group. Early humans likely formed tight-knit communities where everyone contributed to the well-being of all. This cooperation extended beyond the sharing of food and shelter. It included the sharing of knowledge about hunting, shelter building, and even the understanding of the seasons and environmental cues. In a world that seemed hostile at every turn, the strength of the group was often the deciding factor in whether an individual survived. But what made humans even more unique in the struggle for survival was their ingenuity. Unlike other species who may have relied purely on instinct, early humans were capable of foresight. They could look ahead and anticipate the challenges of tomorrow. They understood, for example, that certain animals migrated seasonally and that some plants provided more sustenance during certain times of the year. They could store food, build shelter that provided protection from the wind, and even create tools that allowed them to harness the power of nature, from stone knives to bone needles. These tools were not just items of convenience, they were the lifeblood of survival. Yet, even with all of these biological advantages, the greatest mystery still remains. How did early humans manage to thrive in the face of such overwhelming adversity, without fire to provide them with warmth, light, and comfort? The truth may be simpler than we think. The resilience of early humans wasn't just about their bodies or their tools. It was about their mind, their community, and their unyielding drive to adapt. And it's this adaptability, this relentless push forward, that would lay the foundation for the next chapter in human history. As we move forward, the question now turns to the practical survival techniques that these early humans must have used. How did they create heat and protection without fire? What tools did they craft, and what strategies did they employ to endure the harshest environments known to man? These questions lead us down the next path of discovery into the specific survival methods that defined early human existence, long before the first flames flickered into life. Imagine, for a moment, a time when fire was still a mystery, and survival depended not on modern conveniences, but on the raw resources of the earth. In this world, early humans didn't have the luxury of a warm flame to cook food, ward off animals, or light their way in the dark. But that didn't stop them. In fact, it's possible that the absence of fire sparked one of the greatest demonstrations of human ingenuity the world has ever seen. What if the earliest humans weren't primitive at all, but ingenious survivors whose tools were far more advanced than we think? It's easy to assume that without fire, early humans would have been trapped in a never-ending struggle, unable to adapt. Yet, history tells us a very different story. Early humans had no choice but to become inventors, to use everything in their environment to craft tools that would make survival possible. These tools, made from stone, bone, and wood, were the true hallmarks of human creativity. Though simple by today's standards, they were the product of brilliant minds, honed by the need to survive. Stone knives, for example, were not just crude shards of rock. They were carefully shaped and sharpened, each edge designed for a specific task. Whether it was for cutting through animal hides, breaking open bones to reach marrow, or scraping the meat from carcasses, these early tools were versatile in a way that modern tools often fail to match. They didn't just serve one purpose, they adapted to whatever need arose, from building shelters to crafting clothing. But it wasn't just stone that early humans used. Bone and wood were just as essential to their survival. Bone tools, such as needles and hooks, enabled early humans to sew together hides, creating clothing and shelter. This was no small feat. Creating a needle from bone required skill, precision, and foresight. These early humans didn't just use their environment, they reshaped it to fit their needs, transforming bones into instruments that would protect them from the harsh elements. What, too, played an indispensable role in early human survival. Spears and arrows, fashioned from branches and sharpened with stone, became essential tools for hunting. In a world where fire wasn't yet available to cook meat, early humans relied on their ability to trap, kill, and prepare food with the resources around them. Each tool had a purpose, each designed a specific function to make survival just a little bit easier. One of the most fascinating aspects of these tools is their multifunctionality. Early humans weren't concerned with making a single-use object. They didn't have the luxury of abundance. Every item they crafted had to serve multiple purposes. A knife could be used to scrape meat, chop wood, and fashion other tools. A spear might be used for hunting, but also for defending against predators. This resourcefulness speaks to a level of innovation that we often overlook when thinking about early humans. They were not just surviving, they were mastering their environment with limited resources. So, as we look back at these primitive tools, what do we really see? Not mere instruments for survival, but the first steps in human innovation tools that enabled early humans to not only survive, but to thrive. These survivors didn't need fire to create. They needed imagination, a deep understanding of their surroundings, and the unwavering drive to adapt. As we continue, we'll see how these tools were more than just foraging instruments. They were the foundation of shelter, the next critical survival element that enabled early humans to endure the world they inhabited. What kind of structures did they build, and how did these primitive shelters offer the protection necessary for survival without the warmth of fire? The next chapter will uncover the ingenuity behind early human shelters, revealing just how far they went to shield themselves from the elements. When we think of early human survival, we often imagine the warmth of a fire-lit flickering light casting shadows on cave walls, its heat offering respite from the biting cold. Yet, what if we've been looking at survival all wrong? What if the secret to enduring the harshest of conditions wasn't fire, but shelter? Could shelter have been the true key to survival, far more important than fire ever was? Long before the discovery of fire, early humans faced the relentless forces of nature without the comfort of warmth. The cold was ever present, seeping through their clothes, their skin, their bones. Yet, despite the absence of fire, they managed to survive. How? The answer lies in the ingenuity of shelter, the very structures they built to shield themselves from the unforgiving elements. Early humans didn't have the luxury of permanent homes or the sophisticated insulation methods we use today. They were resourceful, crafting shelters from whatever materials were available. In caves, they found refuge from the wind, rain, and snow, utilizing the natural rock as a fortress against the outside world. But caves were not always readily available, and even if they were, humans needed to find ways to adapt. So, they turned to the land itself, gathering wood, animal skins, canned bones to construct rudimentary huts that would provide some semblance of protection. Imagine standing inside one of these early shelter structures made from branches woven tightly together, its walls padded with animal hides and leaves. The air would be thick with the scent of fur and wood, the floor hard and cold beneath your feet. But inside, it would be warmer than outside, a small oasis in an otherwise hostile world. These early shelters weren't just makeshift tents. They were carefully crafted to maximize warmth. The walls, although rudimentary, would trap heat, and the roofs, made from thick layers of grass or animal skins, would shield them from the elements. The use of animal skins was key. Early humans were not just hunters. They were masters of utilizing every part of the animals they killed. Skins were transformed into blankets, clothing, and shelter coverings, all of which helped insulate against the cold. The fur of the animals, dense and thick, would trap body heat, keeping the cold at bay. In a world where fire was not yet harnessed, these skins were an essential tool for survival, more effective than we often give them credit for. They didn't just shield early humans from the cold. They gave them a chance to rest and recover, to sleep through the night and gather strength for the next day's hunt. Shelter was not just about warmth, it was about protection. The animals that shared the land with early humans were not always friendly, and shelters acted as shields from predators. These structures allowed early humans to sleep safely, knowing they were shielded from the dangers lurking outside. Some shelters were even designed with multiple layers of protection, such as walls made of thorny bushes or branches to keep larger predators at bay. These defensive measures were as vital to survival as the warmth the shelter provided. The mystery lies in how these early humans created such shelters with limited tools. They didn't have advanced technology or the resources we rely on today. What they had was an incredible ability to adapt, to use what was available, and to turn it into something that could protect them from the brutal forces of nature. Every shelter, every piece of animal skin, and every branch woven together tells the story of human perseverance. As we consider the role of shelter in early human survival, we begin to see a pattern, a deep connection between the environment, human creativity, and the will to survive. Fire may have been the tool that provided warmth, but it was the shelters they built, crafted from the very elements around them, that made the difference between life and death. Now that we've explored how early humans braved the elements through shelter, it's time to move on to another critical element of survival. Food. How did they source and prepare food without fire? What methods did they use to make sure they had enough to survive in a world where resources were scarce? This leads us to the next step in uncovering the ingenuity of our ancestors, the secrets behind surviving without fire, even when food itself seemed impossible to secure. In the modern world, cooking is so deeply ingrained in our daily routines that it's hard to imagine a time when it didn't exist. Fire has become synonymous with food, whether we're grilling, boiling, or baking. We often assume that preparing food without fire is inconceivable. Yet, there was a time, not so long ago, when early humans survived without this basic tool. So, how did they manage to survive and thrive without cooking food? The answer may be stranger than you think. Early humans had no ovens, no stoves, no means to heat or cook their food. And yet, they didn't just survive, they flourished. It's easy to think that without the ability to cook food, life would have been impossibly difficult, especially when it comes to preserving nutrients and breaking down tough animal tissue. But what if they had learned to rely on something far simpler, far more natural than we ever considered? Raw foods were at the core of their diet. Think about it. Without fire, early humans would have had to consume food in its natural state. Meat, berries, nuts, and plants, everything would have been eaten as it was found. Imagine walking through a dense forest, foraging for wild berries and digging up roots, then sitting down to consume what you could find, uncooked, unprocessed. This diet wasn't necessarily easy, but it was effective. The food may have been tougher to chew, but early humans adapted to the rawness of their environment. The teeth, with their rugged molars and incisors, were designed to tear and crush unprocessed foods. It wasn't about convenience, it was about survival. But there's more to the story than just raw food. Early humans were incredibly resourceful, finding ways to use what they had to their advantage. They didn't simply settle for what was easy to catch or forage. They knew how to use every part of an animal or plant, wasting nothing. When a hunt succeeded, no part of the animal was left behind. The meat was eaten raw, of course, but bones, sinew, and hides were repurposed for tools, shelter, and clothing. In many ways, these early humans were not just surviving off what they could hunt and gather, but they were living in perfect harmony with their environment, using every resource available to them. The mystery of early human diets doesn't stop at raw consumption. One of the most fascinating aspects of prehistoric food survival is the possibility that early humans discovered methods of preserving their food long before fire was ever tamed. Fermentation, a process that allows food to be preserved and even enhanced, may have been used by some prehistoric groups. Think of it, natural preservation methods, where raw foods were left to ferment and transform into something more stable, more nutritious, and even safer to eat. Fermented foods would have been invaluable in times when food was scarce or when certain nutrients were hard to come by. Early humans may have fermented fruits, vegetables, or even meats, turning them into foods that could last longer and sustain them throughout harsh seasons. The role of fermentation would have been particularly important for early human communities that lived in environments with long winters or periods of food scarcity. Early humans could have used fermentation to preserve meats, fruits, or vegetables, creating foods that were not only safer, but also more easily digestible. By allowing beneficial bacteria to break down complex carbohydrates and proteins, fermentation would have made food more accessible and nutritious, even without the need for heat. Even if they didn't have the concept of fermentation as we know it, early humans likely had an instinctual understanding of preservation. They could have dried meats and fruits, leaving them to dry out in the sun or air. Dried food lasts longer, and it would have been one of the first methods for storing food for the winter months. They may have also relied on the natural cold of caves or underground pits to store food, much like some indigenous groups do today. These techniques were not just about survival, they were sophisticated methods of adaptation that allowed early humans to endure harsh conditions. Another mystery lies in how early humans might have prepared food without the use of heat. While it may seem impossible to make food palatable without cooking, there are many ways early humans could have softened or tenderized their food. By using rocks or stones to pound and break down tough plant fibers or meats, they could have made food easier to eat. Their knowledge of their surroundings would have played a key role in identifying edible plants and seeds that didn't require cooking to unlock their nutrients. What's even more astounding is how these early humans would have learned to balance their diet. In an environment where resources were scarce, they would have had to be strategic in their foraging. Early humans would have understood the nutritional value of the foods they consumed, how certain plants provided vitamins, how meats offer protein, and how berries might give them the energy to survive a long day of hunting or traveling. There is some mystery in how they would have known which foods to eat and which to avoid, relying on a deep, almost intuitive connection to their environment. Survival without fire demanded an astonishing amount of knowledge. While we often credit fire with making food more palatable, the truth is that early humans were far more resourceful than we give them credit for. They didn't just survive by foraging and hunting. They lived off the land, adapted their bodies, and developed techniques that we are only now beginning to understand. Every meal, every hunt, and every foraged food was part of an intricate system of survival that didn't rely on fire, but on the endless creativity of human ingenuity. The diet of early humans was not simply about eating. It was about adapting to an environment that was constantly changing. It's about learning how to thrive in a world that offered no guarantees. Without fire, food became a way of life, a daily challenge. Yes, but one that early humans faced with astonishing resilience. Their ability to make the most out of what the earth provided is a testament to the depth of their resourcefulness. As we move forward in this journey, the question of survival shifts from diet to the social structures that made it possible. How did these early humans work together to ensure their survival? The next chapter will explore the communal bonds that helped them endure the harshest conditions, highlighting the role of cooperation in prehistoric life. It wasn't just tools and food that kept them alive. It was their ability to work together, to form social bonds that transcended individual needs and created a collective strength that allowed them to thrive. In the harsh, unforgiving world of early humans, survival was not a solitary endeavor. It wasn't simply about the strength of one individual or the tools they could craft. It was about something deeper, something more fundamental, the strength of the group. What if the secret to survival was never in tools or fire, but in the very connections that bound humans together? Imagine an early human community huddled together in a shelter made of branches and animal skins, their lives linked by a shared purpose: survival. The world outside was filled with dangers, predators, harsh weather, and scarcity. Alone, any individual would have been vulnerable. But together, the group could accomplish far more than any single person could. This cooperation, born out of necessity, was the true force behind their resilience. Early human groups, likely small and close-knit, depended on each other in ways we may not fully appreciate today. Every hunt, every gathering, every shared moment of rest depended on cooperation. Hunting, for instance, wasn't a solitary activity. It was a communal effort requiring the coordination of multiple individuals. A single human, armed with nothing but rudimentary tools, would have had little chance against a mammoth, a bison, or even a large predator. But when early humans hunted in groups, they could employ strategies, setting traps, driving animals into confined spaces, or using their environment to their advantage that made a successful hunt much more likely. The process of hunting became an intricate dance of roles, where each member of the group contributed to the ultimate success. One might lead the prey into a trap. Another might take the first strike, while others ensured the kill was secured. But it wasn't just the hunt that depended on cooperation. Sharing resources was equally essential for survival. Food, water, shelter. These were things that couldn't be hoarded if the group was to thrive. The weakest members, often the elderly or the young, would need to be cared for, their survival depending on the generosity of others. Early humans would have known that their own survival depended on the survival of the group. This interconnectedness created a bond that transcended individual needs. Resources were shared, knowledge passed down, and every success or failure became a collective experience. Social bonds, though not defined in the way we understand them today, were likely at the core of these early human interactions. The need for survival would have fostered relationships built on trust, loyalty, and shared experience. In times of hardship, the group could rely on these bonds to push forward, to keep fighting, to keep surviving. These connections weren't just emotional, they were practical. They allowed humans to organize, to share responsibilities, and to divide labor. Women and men, children and the elderly, each had roles within the group that were necessary for the survival of the whole. There's an underlying beauty in this. Success of the group wasn't based on individual feats of strength or intelligence, but on how well the group could work together, how effectively they could share their knowledge, and how well they could depend on one another. The greatest tool in early human survival wasn't tea, a sharp stone, or a hidden cabinet, was the strength of these human connections, the glue that held the group together through the toughest of times. As we move forward in understanding early human life, we now begin to explore something just as critical: the transmission of knowledge. How did early humans pass down their survival wisdom to future generations? The answer lies in the rich legacy of shared learning and oral traditions, which were passed from one generation to the next, showing that the group could continue to adapt and thrive. Let us delve deeper into how this ancient wisdom was preserved and how it shaped the survival techniques we now recognize as the foundations of humanity. Throughout history, survival has not been solely about physical strength, but also about knowledge, the wisdom passed down through generations. Just as modern cultures continue to pass on survival skills, early humans, too, carried forward their knowledge from one generation to the next, in a way that ensured the group's resilience in the face of an ever-changing, often hostile world. But what happened to this ancient wisdom? What ancient survival secrets were lost to time? And why does it still remain hidden today? For early humans, survival knowledge was a matter of life and death. The ability to hunt effectively, to forage for food, to create tools, and to navigate the natural world was passed down not through written records, but through oral traditions, demonstrations, and practical teachings. These lessons were embedded in daily life, woven into the very fabric of the community. Elders taught the young how to identify edible plants, how to track animals, how to find shelter and water in even the harshest environments. This knowledge wasn't just important, it was essential. It ensured that every member of the group could contribute to their shared survival. But what happens to knowledge when it is passed down through stories and experiences? It can evolve, morph, and sometimes be lost entirely. Without written language, many of the most important survival strategies relied on memory and tradition. As generations passed, some of this wisdom likely faded, the details blurred or forgotten. But there is something even more insidious at play. What if, in addition to natural decay, some of this ancient knowledge was deliberately erased? Throughout history, many cultures have had their knowledge hidden or suppressed, whether by conquerors, colonizers, or even the very systems that came to power in the wake of ancient civilizations. The knowledge of survival without fire, for example, could easily have been seen as an inconvenient truth. Fire became the symbol of human progress, the hallmark of civilization. As societies grew and technologies advanced, the simple, resourceful survival methods of early humans may have been dismissed as primitive or irrelevant. But what if these techniques were not only forgotten, they were deliberately hidden, erased from the narrative that history chose to remember? It's not hard to imagine how ancient survival knowledge might have been suppressed. The rise of agriculture, the domestication of animals, and the control of fire all marked a shift in human development. As new technologies took hold, the wisdom of the old ways might have seemed obsolete. In a world where fire provided warmth, cooking, and safety, the methods that once allowed humans to survive without it became redundant. It's possible that these methods were simply discarded, but even more likely, they were overshadowed by the dominant narrative of fire as the key to civilization. In some cases, ancient knowledge may have been deliberately erased by those in power, afraid that it could disrupt the progress they sought to promote. The mysterious disappearance of these techniques raises important questions. What did ancient humans know that we've forgotten? What survival methods did they use that we might still need today? Could there be a hidden archive of wisdom lost in the folds of time, that could offer us insights into sustainable survival practices in a world that is facing increasing environmental challenges? As we continue this exploration of lost knowledge, the story grows more compelling. What ancient methods of survival were discarded, hidden, or erased? And how might we begin to uncover them once again? The answers lie not in history books, but in the secrets of the past, waiting to be rediscovered. This search for forgotten wisdom will guide us into the next chapter, where we will uncover the specific techniques and strategies that early humans may have used to survive without fire, secrets of survival that have been buried beneath the sands of time. Prepare for one of the biggest twists yet as we uncover how these lost methods could still have relevance in our modern world. In the frigid, wind-swept landscapes of prehistoric Earth, survival often seemed an insurmountable challenge. The cold would have been unbearable to those living in harsh climates, yet early humans managed to endure, even without the one tool that seems so vital to us today, fire. But what if the secret to surviving the cold wasn't fire at all? What if early humans harnessed the very earth beneath their feet to stay warm, drawing from natural heat sources that modern humans might have overlooked? Could it be that the ancient humans knew something we guaranteed, that the earth itself could provide warmth and shelter? The idea of primitive heat sources is one that has been largely dismissed by modern thinking. We were taught to believe that fire was humanity's first line of defense against the cold. What if, for thousands of years, humans survived using methods that involved tapping into the planet's natural energy, using resources that were hidden right beneath the surface? One possibility lies in the use of hot springs, natural reservoirs of geothermally heated water found in areas of volcanic activity. Imagine early humans stumbling upon a hot spring, its warm waters rising from the earth, providing a respite from the biting cold of their surroundings. These natural pools could have been used not only for bathing, but as a source of heat. In colder climates, where frost could freeze the skin in minutes, these natural warm pools would have offered an invaluable sanctuary. Early humans would have known instinctively that these hot springs were vital for warmth, even if they didn't understand the science behind them. They could have soaked in the warmth of the waters to thaw their bodies, or they could have created makeshift shelters nearby, using the heat rising from the springs to warm their living spaces. But the use of hot springs was not the only way early humans might have utilized the Earth's natural heat. In volcanic regions, the Earth itself can provide heat in the form of hot rocks. Volcanic rocks, heated by the Earth's core, radiate warmth for hours, sometimes even days. Early humans, with their keen senses and deep connection to the land, may have discovered these stones, using them as makeshift heaters in caves or shelters. These stones could have been placed strategically to radiate heat, providing warmth during the coldest nights when fire was either inaccessible or impractical to sustain. Geothermal energy, too, could have played a role in the survival of these ancient peoples. While we often think of geothermal energy as a modern phenomenon used to power cities and provide heating, it's possible that early humans discovered how to use this natural heat to their advantage. In areas where volcanic activity was frequent, the Earth would have been rich with heat beneath the surface, creating pockets of warmth in caves or cracks in the earth. Perhaps early humans learned to seek out these hidden pockets of heat, positioning themselves in places where they could stay warm without the need for a fire. The very idea that early humans were able to utilize these geothermal resources is a game changer. It challenges everything we know about prehistoric survival. While fire may have eventually become the symbol of human progress, it's possible that the earliest humans lived for millennia, not with fire, but with a deep understanding of their natural environment, finding warmth in the earth itself. These methods, possibly used for thousands of years, may have been deliberately overlooked by later cultures, eager to credit fire with the success of early human civilization. Could it be that fire, while critical to human progress, was not the true first source of warmth and survival? The possibility of using natural heat sources presents a fascinating, almost hidden chapter of human ingenuity. Early humans, attuned to their surroundings, were not merely surviving, they were thriving in a world that demanded nothing less than complete harmony with the land. As we explore further, the question arises, how did these early humans manage to protect themselves from the cold using other natural materials? Could fur, insulation, and clever sheltering techniques have provided even more survival strategies? The next section will delve into the use of natural materials, such as animal fur, to see how early humans employed every tool at their disposal to withstand the harshest environments without ever needing to rely on fire. In a world where fire was a distant discovery, early humans turned to one of nature's most effective, yet often overlooked, resources: animal fur. What if the real secret to warmth wasn't fire, but the coats of animals themselves? Could furs have been the unsung heroes of survival, providing the warmth and protection necessary to endure the harshest climates? Long before the warmth of fire could be harnessed, early humans had the foresight to recognize that the animals they hunted provided more than just food. Their skins were nature's own insulation, a powerful shield against the cold. Early humans learned to use every part of the animals they killed. And the fur, dense, thick, and layered, became their armor in the face of winter's fury. These early survivalists weren't just wearing animal pelts for clothing. They were creating complex layers of protection that enabled them to survive in environments where the cold could freeze flesh in minutes. Imagine the thick furs of mammoths, bears, and bison, each one expertly stripped and shaped into garments or bedding. The hides were transformed into more than just cloaks, in a world devoid of heating systems, These pelts were a sanctuary, both wearable and usable as blankets, designed to trap warmth and keep the cold at bay. The layering of different animal furs, from the soft undercoats of smaller animals to the thick, insulating outer layers of larger beasts, would have been an ingenious method to regulate temperature, keeping the wearer warm, even in the most brutal conditions. Early humans likely became masters of working with these materials, learning how to treat and soften the hides to make them more flexible and comfortable. Using bone needles and sinew, they stitched these furs together, forming garments that were both protective and practical. These garments weren't just functional, they were a testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of early humans. The knowledge of how to manipulate and use animal furs wasn't limited to clothing. It extended to the very shelters early humans built to protect themselves from the elements. Fur-lined shelters, perhaps made with woven branches or stones, would have acted as insulative fortresses. By layering animal skins over the roofs and walls, they created living spaces that retained heat, keeping out the harsh winds and freezing temperatures. What's fascinating is how early humans likely understood the specific properties of different animal pelts. Just pick the first animal they encountered. They knew that different types of fur provided different kinds of insulation. The dense undercoats of animals like reindeer, for instance, would have been prized for their warmth, while the more rugged hides of large animals like bison might have been used for their durability and strength. This was not just trial and error. It was a sophisticated understanding of how to make use of nature's resources in the most efficient way possible. And this knowledge wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving in an environment where every advantage counted. While fire was a luxury that early humans would eventually come to rely on, It wasn't the first solution to warmth. For millennia, it was the furs of animals that kept humans alive, offering them a chance to survive in places that seemed inhospitable. The ingenuity of using these natural materials for warmth and shelter would have allowed early humans to endure long, cold winters and harsh environments, all without the need for fire. As we see, early humans were incredibly resourceful, finding ways to turn what nature offered into life-saving solutions. Yet, survival wasn't just about keeping warm. To truly thrive, they had to preserve their food and ensure they had enough sustenance to carry them through lean times. The next chapter will explore the methods early humans may have used to preserve food, turning raw ingredients into long-lasting sustenance, ensuring their survival even when resources were scarce. In the wild, where danger lurked at every turn and survival was never guaranteed, early humans faced challenges that demanded not only physical strength but also mental and spiritual resilience. In their struggle for survival, it's possible that they turned to rituals, mystical practices that connected them with the natural world in ways we've long forgotten. Could these rituals have been far more than mere superstition? What if they were key survival strategies, designed not only to protect against physical threats, but also to ward off the more subtle dangers of the spiritual and unseen? Imagine early humans standing in the heart of the forest or by a vast river, invoking powers beyond the physical world. These rituals may have been part of daily life, but they weren't just for religious purposes. They were survival tools. Early humans may have carved symbols into stones or trees, totemic marks believed to ward off predators or dangerous spirits. These symbols, often animal-shaped, might have served as a kind of protection, channeling the energies of the animals they revered or feared. In a world where predators were a constant threat, totemic practices may have helped instill confidence and a sense of safety. The belief in the power of these symbols could have created a mental shield, giving early humans the courage to venture into the wild and face its dangers head-on. But these rituals likely went beyond just creating protection against predators. Certain plants, known for their medicinal properties, could have been woven into these practices. Perhaps early humans used herbs to make poultices for wounds, to treat fever, or even to ward off disease. They would have learned to recognize the plants that had healing properties. Their knowledge passed down from one generation to the next, hidden within the rituals they performed. The act of creating medicine from plants might have been more than a practical task. It could have been seen as a sacred duty, a way to commune with the forces of nature that helped sustain life. What's most intriguing is the possibility that these rituals were not merely symbolic. They might have been grounded in a real understanding of nature's rhythms. Early humans, deeply connected to the land, had known that certain times of the day or year brought greater danger, perhaps during full moons or when the weather shifted unpredictably. Rituals performed during these times would have been meant to align humans with natural forces, carrying their safety during these hazardous periods. These practices could have acted as guides to survival, influencing when and where early humans chose to hunt, gather, or shelter. Even more fascinating is the idea that these rituals might have had a more direct impact on survival. The repetition of certain actions, the wearing of protective symbols or amulets, might have served to bolster the confidence and resolve of individuals. In a harsh world where fear of the unknown could be as dangerous as any predator, these rituals may have helped instill a sense of power and connection to the environment, allowing early humans to feel more capable of handling the threats around them. As we move forward, we begin to see how deeply intertwined survival and spiritual beliefs were for early humans. The rituals, designed to protect the physical body, were just as much about mental and emotional fortitude. The boundaries between the physical and metaphysical worlds were often blurred, and these ancient practices may have been just as effective in ensuring survival as the tools they crafted or the shelters they built. This connection between survival and spirituality will lead us to the next part of the story, the ways in which spiritual beliefs shaped and influenced early human survival strategies. These beliefs weren't just cultural, okay? They were deeply embedded in how early humans understood and interacted with the world around them. The next chapter will explore how this profound relationship between spirit and survival became a fundamental part of human life and culture. In the modern world, cooking is so synonymous with food preparation that it's difficult to imagine surviving without it. But what if the real cooking of food wasn't about fire at all? What if early humans turned raw food into edible, life-sustaining meals using methods we've long forgotten, far from being a primitive, rudimentary way of life? The preservation techniques of early humans were sophisticated, strategic, and vital for survival in a world without fire. Let's uncover the hidden art of food preservation that enabled early humans to endure, thrive, and pass down their knowledge for generations. When we think of food preservation today, we often think of refrigeration, canning, and freezing. But for early humans, survival was about far more than simply storing food. For it was about transforming raw ingredients into sustenance that could last through harsh winters, dry spells, and unpredictable seasons. Fermentation and drying were two powerful techniques that enabled early humans to store food for the long term, making it more accessible, nutritious, and safe to eat. Fermentation, the process of using microorganisms like bacteria and yeast to break down food, was one of the most important methods early humans could have used. Fermentation is an ancient practice known to have been used for thousands of years to preserve food in ways that we now know can also enhance its nutritional value. But what if it wasn't just about preservation? What if early humans knew that fermentation had the potential to transform food, adding new flavors, increasing digestibility, and even offering health benefits? It's likely that fermentation was used as much for these reasons as for survival. Imagine early humans using fermented foods as a tool for health, perhaps relying on fermented grains, fruits, and vegetables to sustain them during lean periods. In the absence of fire, they might have relied on fermentation to unlock nutrients that were otherwise inaccessible. For instance, fermentation makes certain nutrients in grains and legumes more bioavailable, allowing the body to absorb more of the foods, vitamins, and minerals. What if early humans, in their natural wisdom, discovered that by allowing certain foods to ferment naturally, they not only extended the life of their food, but also enhanced its nutritional content? These fermented foods would have been far more than just a means of survival. They would have been a cornerstone of health and strength, sustaining individuals and groups through harsh seasons. Similarly, drying was an equally important food preservation technique. Early humans likely used the natural elements of wind and sun to dry meats, fruits, and even fish, allowing them to store food for months at a time without the need for refrigeration or cooking. Drying works by removing moisture, which inhibits the growth of bacteria and molds, allowing food to last much longer. The dry, arid climate of certain regions may have offered the perfect conditions for drying, especially when it came to drying meats like bison, mammoth, or fish. But drying wasn't just about keeping food for later. It was about transforming food into a form that was portable, easy to store, and long-lasting. Take, for example, the drying of meats. Early humans, who would have relied on hunting to gather protein, would have found that drying their catch allowed them to store it for leaner times, like during the winter months when hunting was more difficult. These dried meats, likely salted or preserved with herbs, were portable and easy to carry, making them perfect for long trips or times when fresh food was scarce. In fact, drying meat not only preserved it, but also concentrated its flavor and nutrients. What if early humans knew that by drying their food, they were not just preserving it, but creating a richer, more flavorful sustenance for survival? The use of wind and sun to dry food is fascinating because it reveals how attuned early humans were to their environment. They didn't have the modern conveniences we take for granted today, but they had a profound understanding of natural processes, recognizing how to harness the elements to benefit their survival. From drying meat in the open air to preserving fruits by the warmth of the sun. Early humans created a system of food preservation that could sustain them through periods of abundance and scarcity alike. But beyond drying and fermentation, early humans likely employed other preservation techniques, such as smoking or storing food in cool, dry caves or underground pits, utilizing nature's own refrigeration system. These methods, passed down through generations, would have been integral to the survival of early human communities, allowing them to endure long winters and harsh environmental changes. The methods early humans used to preserve food without fire were not simple. They were the result of trial, error, and a deep understanding of nature's processes. Early humans were able to transform raw, perishable food into long-lasting sustenance by harnessing the power of microorganisms, air, and temperature. Far from being primitive, these techniques were a testament to human ingenuity and the capacity to adapt to the challenges of survival. Without fire, early humans relied on their knowledge of the natural world to provide them with the food they needed, allowing them to not only survive, but thrive in a world full of danger and uncertainty. As we consider the astonishing ways in which early humans preserved food, we begin to glimpse how survival was more than just a matter of finding food. It was about transforming what nature provided into something that could nourish and sustain, even when resources were scarce. The next chapter will explore how these survival strategies might have been passed down as part of a rich, oral tradition. How did the knowledge of these preservation techniques get passed from one generation to the next? And how might these ancient survival practices have evolved into the rituals and traditions that shaped human societies? In the wild, where danger lurked at every turn and survival was never guaranteed, early humans faced challenges that demanded not only physical strength, but also mental and spiritual resilience. In their struggle for survival, it's possible that they turned to rituals, mystical practices that connected them with the natural world in ways we've long forgotten. Could these rituals have been far more than mere superstition? What if they were key survival strategies, designed not only to protect against physical threats, but also to ward off the more subtle dangers of the spiritual and unseen? Imagine early humans standing in the heart of the forest or by a vast river, invoking powers beyond the physical world. These rituals may have been part of daily life, but they weren't just for religious purposes. They were survival tools. Early humans may have carved symbols into stones or trees, totemic marks believed to ward off predators or dangerous spirits. These symbols, often animal-shaped, might have served as a kind of protection, channeling the energies of the animals they revered or feared. In a world where predators were a constant threat, totemic practices may have helped instill confidence and a sense of safety. The belief in the power of these symbols could have created a mental shield, giving early humans the courage to venture into the wild and face its dangers head-on. But these rituals likely went beyond just creating protection against predators. Certain plants, known for their medicinal properties, could have been woven into these practices. Perhaps early humans used herbs to make poultices for wounds, to treat fever, or even to ward off disease. They would have learned to recognize the plants that had healing properties. Their knowledge passed down from one generation to the next, hidden within the rituals they performed. The act of creating medicine from plants might have been more than a practical task. It could have been seen as a sacred duty, a way to commune with the forces of nature that helped sustain life. What's most intriguing is the possibility that these rituals were not merely symbolic. They might have been grounded in a real understanding of nature's rhythms. Early humans, deeply connected to the land, had known that certain times of the day or year brought greater danger, perhaps during full moons or when the weather shifted unpredictably. Rituals performed during these times would have been meant to align humans with natural forces, carrying their safety during these hazardous periods. These practices could have acted as guides to survival, influencing when and where early humans chose to hunt, gather, or shelter. Even more fascinating is the idea that these rituals might have had a more direct impact on survival. The repetition of certain actions, the wearing of protective symbols or amulets, might have served to bolster the confidence and resolve of individuals. In a harsh world where fear of the unknown could be as dangerous as any predator, these rituals may have helped instill a sense of power and connection to the environment, allowing early humans to feel more capable of handling the threats around them. As we move forward, we begin to see how deeply intertwined survival and spiritual beliefs were for early humans. The rituals, designed to protect the physical body, were just as much about mental and emotional fortitude. The boundaries between the physical and metaphysical worlds were often blurred, and these ancient practices may have been just as effective in ensuring survival as the tools they crafted or the shelters they built. This connection between survival and spirituality will lead us to the next part of the story, the ways in which spiritual beliefs shaped and influenced early human survival strategies. These beliefs weren't just cultural, they were deeply embedded in how early humans understood and interacted with the world around them. The next chapter will explore how this profound relationship between spirit and survival became a fundamental part of human life and culture. In the harsh, unpredictable world of early humans, survival was not simply a matter of physical prowess or practical tools. It was also about belief in the spirits that surrounded them, and the unseen forces that governed the land, the animals, and the very air they breathed. What if the ancient belief in spirits was more than superstition? Could it have been a survival tactic as essential as fire itself? Early humans faced constant dangers, from predators lurking in the shadows to harsh weather conditions that could wipe out entire tribes. In this unforgiving world, survival wasn't just about outsmarting nature's elements, it was about aligning with them. Spiritual beliefs, often intertwined with survival techniques, may have provided a mental and emotional framework that empowered early humans to face these threats with confidence. These beliefs were not idle superstitions, but practical responses to the dangers of the prehistoric world. Early humans may have believed that by invoking the gods of animals, they could influence the outcomes of hunts or ensure protection from dangerous creatures. The belief in animal spirits might have been a deeply ingrained part of their survival strategy, offering guidance and insight into the rhythms of the natural world. By understanding the behaviors and signs of the animals they hunted, early humans could anticipate their movements, predict weather changes, and even avoid potential dangers. The animals were not just food sources, they were divine guides, providing wisdom on how to live in harmony with the land. It's possible that early humans understood the power of these spiritual connections in ways we have yet to fully grasp. They may have seen their survival not as a solitary struggle against nature, but as part of a larger cosmic order. Every animal killed, every shelter built, was not just an act of survival. It was an offering to the spirit that protected them. By respecting these forces, early humans might have believed they could ensure the safety and prosperity of their tribes. But the spiritual beliefs of early humans weren't limited to animals. Nature itself was likely viewed as a powerful, living force. Early humans may have believed that the elements, the wind, the sun, were gods or spirits to be respected and appeased. The protection of the tribe, in their view, may have depended not only on physical tools and survival skills, but on maintaining a deep connection to the land and its spiritual forces. The rituals they practiced, from prayers to offerings, were not mere acts of superstition. They were acts of survival ways to invoke favor from the unseen world that governed their survival. This spiritual view of survival may have also been a way to cope with the overwhelming uncertainty of the natural world. In a time when knowledge was limited and explanations for events were often shrouded in mystery, spiritual beliefs provided a structure to make sense of life's dangers. Believing that the spirits controlled their fate allowed early humans to feel more in control of their world, offering reassurance when faced with death or disaster. Far from being a primitive form of superstition, early human spirituality might have been a rational response to the dangers of the prehistoric world, a way of channeling mental and emotional resilience in the face of an unforgiving environment. In this sense, spiritual beliefs were not just complementary to survival, they were integral to it. As we continue exploring the ways in which early humans survived, the link between belief and survival becomes more apparent. The next chapter will delve deeper into how these spiritual practices, along with their associated knowledge, might have been passed down through generations. But as we'll see, some of this sacred knowledge may have been intentionally hidden, its true meaning obscured by time and the rise of later civilizations. The story of lost wisdom and suppressed knowledge is about to unfold. In the shadows of history, where time and power intertwine, there are whispers of knowledge lost to the ages. What if the survival methods of early humans were hidden, deliberately erased by time and power? What secrets have we been denied, deliberately buried beneath the weight of generations, leaving us only with fragments of a once-rich understanding of life and survival? The idea of lost knowledge is a tantalizing one. Throughout history, certain methods and practices ones that could have been essential to survival seem to have disappeared, leaving no trace behind. It's easy to assume that the passage of time and the decay of materials are to blame. But what if some of these techniques were not simply forgotten, but actively erased, suppressed by those in power? Early humans developed ingenious strategies for survival methods of foraging, hunting, and food preservation that we now only begin to understand. Yet, much of this knowledge has been lost to us, hidden away by forces that sought to control or reshape the course of human history. One possible reason for the loss of knowledge is the rise of new technologies. As human societies evolved and new tools were developed, older methods of survival may have been cast aside as primitive or irrelevant. The advent of agriculture, for example, radically changed the way humans lived. As people began to settle in permanent communities, the skills and knowledge required for surviving in the wild became less essential. Fire, which had once been a symbol of survival, began to dominate as the tool of progress. Yet, in the shadow of this shift, much of the old wisdom about surviving without fire, about living off the land and using nature's resources to their fullest, faded into obscurity. But the disappearance of this knowledge is not solely a result of technological progress, There's a darker possibility that much of this information was deliberately erased or hidden, sealed by those in power who sought to control the narrative of human survival. Throughout history, knowledge has been a valuable commodity, and many powerful groups have understood that controlling information is a way to maintain dominance. Early survival practices, which could have empowered individuals or communities to live independently, may have been suppressed for fear of losing control. What if ancient survival knowledge was deliberately obscured by those in positions of power, eager to keep the masses dependent on more centralized systems of control, such as organized agriculture or government? Consider how the rise of religious or political institutions could have played a role in suppressing these survival techniques. Religious leaders and rulers, often backed by powerful elites, might have dismissed the old ways of survival, labeling them as superstitions or primitive beliefs. The people who held knowledge about using animal skins for insulation, fermenting food for preservation, or creating natural heat sources might have been ostracized or persecuted. Their methods ridiculed or actively eradicated. Over time, this knowledge would have been lost, not because it wasn't useful, but because it didn't fit into the new order being established. It's also possible that certain techniques were deliberately erased through cultural shifts. As new civilizations arose, a focus shifted away from the immediate survival of the individual or small community toward the greater good of expanding empires and building more complex societies. The knowledge that once helped people survive in harsh conditions was overshadowed by the growing need for agriculture, urbanization, and industry. The ancient ways of living in harmony with the environment were forgotten as humans turned their attention to more advanced tools and systems. Even as empires rose and fell, certain knowledge remained hidden, possibly protected by secretive groups or passed down in hushed whispers. Some scholars speculate that ancient societies, like the Egyptians or the Sumerians, may have guarded certain survival techniques, fearing that revealing them would undermine their power. These methods, perhaps tied to spiritual beliefs or hidden in rituals, may have been kept secret, assuring that only the elite had access to the knowledge that could truly offer independence and self-sufficiency. But why would such knowledge be hidden, even after the fall of these empires? Could it be that in the centuries following, those who ruled sought to distance themselves from the primitive methods that early humans used to survive? The idea of survival without fire, without advanced technologies, may have been seen as a threat to the established order, a reminder of a time when humanity relied on nature, not on the power structures built by kings and empires. The suppression of this knowledge extends beyond just the survival techniques themselves. It's possible that entire philosophies about how humans should live in relation to the environment were erased, replaced with new systems of thought that focused on human dominance over nature. Early humans, who lived so closely with the land, understood the delicate balance between humanity and the natural world. But as civilizations advanced, an understanding was replaced with the notion that nature was something to be conquered, not revered. This deliberate loss of knowledge means that many of the survival strategies used by early humans are lost to time, obscured by cultural shifts, new technologies, and the efforts of those in power. It's only in recent years that we've begun to rediscover some of these ancient techniques. Fermentation, for instance, has seen a revival as we learn how to use natural processes to preserve food. Yet, much remains hidden, buried in the past, and perhaps deliberately concealed. The possibility that much of this ancient wisdom has been deliberately erased opens up a world of speculation and intrigue. What if the very survival methods that allowed early humans to endure harsh winters, to live off the land without fire, and to thrive, in the most dangerous environments, are not lost at all, but are simply waiting to be uncovered? As we delve deeper into the story of human survival, we begin to ask, what else has been hidden? What ancient practices were erased, and why? The answers to these questions could change everything we thought we knew about human history and survival. As we continue our exploration, the focus shifts to how this hidden knowledge may be revived in the modern world. How can we reconnect with these forgotten methods of survival, and what impact could they have on our own lives today? In the next chapter, we'll uncover the potential applications of these lost techniques in contemporary survival strategies, offering a glimpse into how the wisdom of the past could shape our future. Throughout history, there have been civilizations whose achievements rivaled anything we might consider modern. The great cities of Mesopotamia, the intricate systems of the Indus Valley, and the towering monuments of the Maya all stand as testaments to the ingenuity of early humans. But what if, in the wake of their fall, a treasure trove of knowledge was lost forever? What if the decline of these civilizations didn't just erase their cities and cultures, but also vital survival techniques, methods of living that predated fire and used resources in ways we are only beginning to understand? The collapse of ancient civilizations like Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and the Maya is often attributed to factors like warfare, climate change, or invasions. But what if these events did more than just tear down cities? They wiped out knowledge that had been passed down for generations. In the chaos of destruction, central survival strategies practices that had kept people alive for millennia may have been lost in the aftermath. The fall of these societies could have been the final chapter in a long history of knowledge that stretched back 2 times before fire had become central to human survival. Take Mesopotamia, for example. Known as the cradle of civilization, this region gave birth to writing, agriculture, and complex societies. But when the once great cities of Sumer and Babylon fell to invaders or environmental collapse, the wisdom contained within them could have been lost in the rubble. What knowledge might have been erased with the fall of these cities? Could early human techniques for surviving in the harsh desert landscape, relying on natural sources of water, food preservation, and shelter, have been buried under centuries of shifting power? The Indus Valley civilization, which flourished in the fertile lands along the river Indus, was also a wonder of early human ingenuity. The advanced urban planning and drainage systems are a testament to their understanding of water and waste management. But when the civilization disappeared, it's possibly due to a combination of climate change and shifting river patterns. The knowledge that allowed people to thrive in an environment that could not always guarantee abundant resources may have disappeared with it. Could their methods for food storage, water conservation, or adapting to drought conditions have been lost in the disarray of the civilization's collapse? And then there are the Mayan, another civilization that mastered agriculture, astronomy, and complex systems of government. But as their cities crumbled, possibly due to prolonged droughts, warfare, or societal upheaval, the critical knowledge of how to endure in such a harsh climate was also at risk of being forgotten. What if the Maya had techniques to survive without fire, like advanced methods of cooling their homes or preserving their food, that disappeared as their cities fell? These secrets, once hidden in plain sight, may have vanished along with the buildings and people who held them. What is particularly fascinating is the possibility that some of these survival methods were not simply forgotten due to time, but actively erased by those in power. As new empires rose, they often sought to legitimize their rule by suppressing the knowledge of previous societies. The elites of the time, in their drive to establish dominance and control, could have systematically destroyed the records and practices that threatened their authority. Knowledge of self-sufficiency, of thriving without the power structures they built, could have been seen as a challenge to the established order. In such cases, knowledge would not simply fade, would be deliberately erased to ensure that the old ways did not rise again. The loss of knowledge was indeed just a natural consequence of societal collapse, could have been part of a deliberate campaign to sever connections to the past, to reshape history in a way that maintained control. As civilizations fell, so too did the secrets that helped them survive. What ancient knowledge was lost forever when these powerful civilizations fell? Could their fall be tied to secrets we no longer understand? The fall of these ancient cultures is not just a tragedy of lost cities and broken monuments. It is the loss of critical wisdom that might have helped humanity continue to thrive. This disappearance of knowledge raises the next question: how did later societies, who built upon the foundations of these ancient peoples, hide or suppress this knowledge? In the next section, we will explore how this lost wisdom could have been deliberately suppressed, forgotten, or hidden by later cultures eager to maintain their power and control. The story of survival isn't just about what we lost it as about what has been kept hidden. In the annals of human progress, few advancements have been as universally revered as the discovery and control of fire. It's been heralded as one of humanity's greatest achievements, tool that allowed early humans to cook food, ward off predators, and thrive in environments that were otherwise inhospitable. But what if the rise of fire wasn't just a breakthrough, but a force that erased everything humans knew before? Could it be that fire was used to control survival itself? When fire became the dominant survival tool, it was more than just a new method of warmth or cooking. It became a symbol of progress, of human mastery over nature. But in this rise, something crucial was lost: the traditional, more secretive techniques of survival that had enabled early humans to endure without fire. These methods were once intimately connected to nature tools derived from the earth, plants, animals, tamed in the environment, but as fire became central to survival, these older techniques were discarded, forgotten, or purposefully suppressed. The transition from a reliance on nature's resources to an embrace of fire as the ultimate survival tool happened slowly but powerfully. One of the key cultural shifts that favored fire was the rise of agriculture. As humans began to settle in permanent communities, fire became a necessary tool for cooking food, preparing meals more efficiently, and making food safer to eat. But in the process, the ancient methods of raw food consumption, fermentation, natural preservation began to fade into obscurity. Fire wasn't just seen as a tool, it symbolized civilization itself, a force that tamed nature and brought order to an otherwise chaotic world. With the advent of permanent settlements, the structure of society began to change. As communities grew, so too did the centralization of power. Those who controlled fire, the ability to cook, to provide warmth, and to generate light, so control a significant part of survival itself. Cooking food became a communal activity, centered around the hearth or the village fire, marking a shift away from the personal, intimate survival strategies of earlier humans. As societies became more dependent on fire for daily sustenance, the ancient knowledge of survival without it was pushed to the fringes, seen as primitive and unnecessary. Moreover, the political dynamics of these emerging societies may have contributed to the suppression of survival knowledge. Fire, as a symbol of progress, became a way for the ruling classes to exert control over the masses. Power structures found it beneficial to centralize knowledge that, in earlier times, had been passed down through generations in more decentralized, intimate ways. The old survival techniques, like using animal hides for warmth or preserving food with fermentation, were no longer seen as useful or efficient in a world that revered fire as the ultimate tool. The elite, who had access to fire and the luxury of more secure living conditions, may have deliberately suppressed these older methods to solidify their power. But fire's ascendancy didn't just overshadow earlier survival techniques, too actively replace them. In many ways, fire became synonymous with progress and civilization, erasing the knowledge of how to thrive in nature's raw, unmodified state. Human ingenuity was now overshadowed by the more convenient and efficient use of fire, which was increasingly used to cook, warm, and preserve. In some cases, the suppression of these techniques might have been seen as necessary for the advancement of human society. Modernity required moving away from the primitive ways of survival. Fire became the primary tool for survival. Ancient techniques that once allowed humans to live harmoniously with nature were relegated to the past, forgotten or hidden. What was once considered a natural and practical approach to survival, using the land's resources to their fullest, was now seen as archaic, a relic of a time before civilization. This exploration of fire as rise as a dominant force in survival will lead us into the next chapter. The rediscovery of those very techniques that were lost or hidden in the wake of fire as dominance. As modern survivalists and researchers look back at ancient practices, they are beginning to unearth the wisdom that was suppressed or forgotten. The next section will explore how these ancient survival strategies are being revived in contemporary times, offering a glimpse into how the knowledge of the past can help guide us in the present. In a world that's ever evolving, where technology often seems to offer quick fixes to our daily struggles, what if the keys to surviving both physically and spiritually lie in the very techniques our ancestors perfected? What if we've only just begun to uncover the deep wisdom of ancient survival methods that were once hidden from us? These forgotten skills, once thought to be obsolete, are now being rediscovered and reintroduced into our modern world. The techniques that kept early humans alive without the conveniences we now take for granted are finding new relevance as people increasingly turn to alternative ways of living, especially in uncertain times. In recent years, archaeologists, survivalists, researchers have begun to recognize the value of ancient methods that once enabled humans to endure without the luxury of fire, electricity, or modern tools. These practices, long lost to history, are being tested, revived, and adapted by modern experts, some of whom are even experimenting with techniques such as harnessing natural heat sources, using animal furs for insulation, and employing age-old food preservation methods. One of the most fascinating rediscoveries has been the exploration of natural heat sources. The idea that early humans survived cold environments by tapping into geothermal energy or utilizing warm springs is being revisited today by researchers. Survivalists have begun to experiment with using hot rocks, volcanic stones, and even the warmth from natural hot springs to maintain body heat in survival situations. Just as ancient people might have gathered near hot springs or placed heated stones around their shelters to fend off the cold. Modern survivalists are learning to rely on these natural heat sources when stranded in the wilderness. What was once considered primitive knowledge has become an essential part of modern survival training. In the realm of clothing, the knowledge of how to use animal furs for warmth and insulation is also seeing a resurgence. Survivalists and outdoor enthusiasts are increasingly turning to the old ways of crafting their own clothing from animal skins, a practice that was integral to survival for millennia. Early humans understood the insulating properties of fur, and modern experts are now replicating these techniques, using materials like reindeer and rabbit furs to create garments and bedding that offer exceptional warmth without the need for fire. These furs are being used not only for outer clothing, but also for bedding, offering a layer of protection against the elements in ways modern synthetic materials simply cannot. Equally impressive is the rediscovery of food preservation techniques such as drying and fermentation, which were once essential for survival. Ancient methods of drying meat in the sun or preserving fruits in natural ways are being explored by modern survivalists as viable alternatives to modern refrigeration and canning. In an era when food security is becoming an increasing concern, these techniques are making a comeback. Experts are learning how to dry meats and fish in open-air dryers, using the same principles that early humans employed to ensure their food lasted through the winter months. Meanwhile, fermentation, once a mysterious process that transformed simple vegetables into fermented delicacies, is being hailed as a way to enhance the nutritional value of food and improve its shelf life. So what once seemed like primitive methods are now viewed as incredibly resourceful practices that modern humanity can adopt in the face of ecological or economic challenges. The revival of these ancient survival techniques is not limited to a handful of fringe survivalists. It is becoming a broader movement, especially as more people turn towards sustainable living practices and seek alternatives to the consumer-driven lifestyle. Modern-day homesteaders and off-grid enthusiasts are increasingly adopting ancient survival strategies, learning how to live off the land in a way that echoes the past. They are using techniques passed down through generations that help them live in harmony with nature, growing their own food, utilizing renewable resources, and embracing simplicity in their daily lives. This shift in mindset marks a return to older, more sustainable ways of living that prioritize self-reliance, resourcefulness, and a deeper connection to the environment. In the world of modern survivalism, the rediscovery of these techniques goes hand in hand with a philosophical shift toward resilience. It's no longer just about surviving in extreme conditions. It's about adapting to the changing world around us, learning to live in balance with nature, and finding ways to navigate modern uncertainties without relying entirely on technology or external systems. The knowledge of our ancestors, once deemed obsolete, is now being hailed as essential to overcoming the challenges of the present. Early humans didn't just survive, they thrived, using the world around them in ways we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. What makes this rediscovery so fascinating is that many of these techniques are rooted not only in practicality, but in ancient wisdom. Early humans had an intimate relationship with the earth, understanding its cycles and rhythms in ways that modern people often overlook. As we rediscover these practices, we are beginning to realize that survival was never just about the physical tools. It was about an underlying philosophy and understanding of how to work with nature rather than against it. The more we learn about these techniques, the more we uncover a way of living that doesn't merely focus on surviving, but on flourishing in a world that often feels disconnected from the natural world. The rediscovery of ancient survival practices has profound implications, not just for those who practice them, but for society as a whole. As we confront the challenges of climate change, resource depletion, and the fragility of modern infrastructure, these techniques offer an alternative path forward, one rooted in the resilience of the past. In the next chapter, we will explore how this revival is reshaping our understanding of survival, pushing us to reconsider what it means to be resilient, to live sustainably, and to adapt to a rapidly changing world. What we once considered lost knowledge may hold the key to shaping a more resilient future. Survival is often reduced to the basics: food, shelter, warmth. It's easy to think of survival as simply staying alive, a fight against the forces of nature to continue breathing, to endure another day. But what if survival is not just about food and warmth, but something deeper, something we've lost over time? What if survival transcends mere physical needs and becomes an experience that reaches into the mental, spiritual, and philosophical realms? In ancient times, survival was not merely a matter of gathering food and building shelter. It was a way of life that was deeply integrated with nature, a continual dance of adaptation and reverence. Early humans were not just surviving, they were in constant communion with their environment, attuned to the rhythms of the land, the changing seasons, and the cycles of life. The environment was not something to be conquered or controlled, but something to be understood and respected. Survival was about living in harmony with the world around them, and this deep connection with nature was at the core of their existence. What if this connection is something we've lost in the modern age? Our survival today is often seen through the lens of technology: fire to cook, machines to harvest, synthetic materials for warmth. But is it possible that the essence of survival goes beyond these tools? Perhaps the true meaning of survival lies not in what we can accumulate or control, but in our ability to adapt and connect with the natural world in ways that go beyond basic survival instincts. The ancient understanding of survival was far more holistic than the fire-dependent existence that has come to define us. Early humans relied on natural knowledge that went beyond the functional aspects of survival. Their lives were bound to the land, not just as a resource, but as a source of spirituality and meaning. To survive was not merely to endure, but to align oneself with the forces of nature. To recognize that one's survival depended on the health of the environment, the animals they hunted, and the plants they gathered. This ancient view of survival was deeply interconnected with community. Survival was not an individual endeavor. It was a collective effort. The strength of the tribe, the unity of the group, was as essential to survival as any physical tool. The sharing of knowledge, the passing down of survival skills, and the communal rituals that bound people together all played a role in sustaining life. Survival, in this sense, was about more than just staying alive. It was about thriving together as a unit, connected to each other and to the land. In our modern world, survival often feels more isolated, disconnected. We rely on technologies that separate us from the natural world or conditioned homes, processed food, and constant innovation to shield us from the forces of nature. We've become less attuned to the rhythms of the earth, less aware of the subtle signals that early humans would have relied on for survival. But what if we've lost something vital in this shift? Survival, in its truest form, may not be just about enduring the world's harshness, but about remembering our connection to it. What if true survival is about more than just physical endurance? What if it's about cultivating a deeper connection with the land, with others, and with ourselves? As we delve into the philosophy of survival, it becomes clear that this is not just a physical struggle. It is a spiritual and emotional journey, a quest to understand our place in the world and how to live in balance with it. As we continue to explore how survival has shaped human culture, it will lead us to consider how our resilience has evolved and how we can reclaim the essence of survival that may have been lost over time. The next chapter will dive into the enduring nature of human resilience, opening the door to the deeper implications of how survival methods have shaped the very identity of humanity. Could our very identity as humans have been shaped by our struggle to survive on the methods we use to do it, beyond the simple necessity of food, warmth, and shelter? Survival has been about something far more profound: the way we relate to the world, the stories we tell, and the cultures we build. The struggle to survive, particularly in the harsh conditions that early humans faced, was not just about enduring the physical world. It was about creating meaning from that struggle, and from that meaning, human identity was born. From the earliest days of humanity, survival influenced the development of social structures, art, religion, and even language. The way early humans interacted with their environment and with each other formed the bedrock of what would become complex societies. Survival was the force that brought people together, driving them to form communities, share resources, and protect one another. It wasn't just about individual survival, it was about collective survival, about the creation of bonds that transcended physical need. Survival methods, whether it was hunting in groups, crafting tools from stone and bone, or learning how to preserve food, all required cooperation and shared knowledge. The act of surviving itself became a collective story, a story of unity, sacrifice, and shared purpose. These stories, passed down through generations, became foundational to early cultures. They shaped the very essence of community and how early humans understood their place in the world. The rituals and customs that arose from survival were not only about practical means, they were also about the meanings attached to those practices. The totemic symbols carved into stone or wood, the rituals surrounding the hunt, and the sacred beliefs tied to nature and animals, all of these were born from the daily struggles to survive. As early humans learned to live with nature, they began to form deeper cultural expressions: art, religion, and language. Art, for instance, was not merely an aesthetic pursuit, was a way to communicate, to understand the world, and to honor the forces that helped them survive. Cave paintings, carvings, and totems often depicted animals, plants, and symbols of the natural world. These images were more than just decorative, they were integral to survival, as they captured the essence of the environment and the belief systems that revolved around it. Through art, early humans connected with the natural world in a way that reinforced their survival strategies and the very identity of their communities. Religion, too, was inextricably linked to survival. Early humans often viewed the forces of nature, storms, animals, the sun, the moon, not as mere phenomena, but as divine powers that must be respected and appeased. The belief in spirits, gods, and ancestral forces was rooted in the need for survival and protection. These religious beliefs were not only a way of explaining the mysteries of the world, they were a way to give meaning to the struggle for survival, to make sense of the hardships faced by the community. Rituals, sacrifices, and prayers were ways of ensuring that the community would be protected, that their survival was not just a matter of chance, but a result of divine favor or respect. Language, too, was shaped by survival. The need to communicate effectively in the hunt, in the construction of shelters, and in the sharing of resources likely spurred the development of complex language. Early humans needed to coordinate, to teach survival skills, and to pass down knowledge. In this way, language became a vital tool for survival, as much a part of the cultural fabric as the tools they used or the fire they mastered. What is clear is that survival wasn't just about the bare essentials. It was about the creation of identity, the shaping of culture, and the formation of communities that would thrive in the face of adversity. Stories born from survival struggles became the backbone of human culture, and they continue to resonate with us today. As we reflect on how survival shaped our identity, it becomes evident that these early methods of surviving, not just physically, but spiritually and culturally, an integral part of who we are as a species. The next chapter will explore how modern societies continue to grapple with the mysteries of ancient survival methods, the knowledge that was lost, and how we are rediscovering and incorporating these teachings into our lives today. The legacy of survival is not just a relic of the past, it's a living part of the human story, continuing to shape who we are and how we navigate the world. In a world increasingly marked by uncertainty, whether due to environmental collapse, social upheaval, or economic instability, there's a growing movement that turns to the past for answers. What if the survival wisdom of our ancestors is exactly what we need in today's uncertain world? As modern life becomes more complex and unpredictable, ancient techniques, once thought to be relics of a bygone era, are making a surprising comeback. These methods, honed over thousands of years, offer a profound approach to resilience and ability to survive and thrive against the odds. The concept of resilience, of enduring through hardship and emerging stronger, has always been a part of the human story. Yet, as we face global challenges like climate change, resource depletion, and social disintegration, we find ourselves looking to the past, rediscovering the methods that allowed our ancestors to survive in an unpredictable world. Ancient survival techniques rooted in a deep connection with nature and a reliance on community are finding new relevance in the context of modern crises. Take, for example, the resurgence of homesteading and self-sufficiency movements. Once an essential part of rural life, these skills have been resurrected by those seeking to live off the land and reduce their dependence on the industrial systems that dominate our modern world. Today's homesteaders are rediscovering the skills that early humans used for survival, growing their own food, raising animals, and crafting their own tools. These practices not only offer a pathway to self-sufficiency, but also echo the ancient wisdom that taught people how to live sustainably in harmony with the land. By focusing on natural resources, permaculture principles, and sustainable living, modern homesteaders are tapping into the same survival strategies that allowed their ancestors to thrive in the harshest conditions. Similarly, ancient methods of food preservation are being revived in contemporary survival training. Techniques like drying, fermenting, smoking food, which were once critical for surviving long winters or scarce periods, are making a comeback as people look for ways to preserve food without relying on refrigeration or modern technology. These methods, which have been used for centuries, offer an alternative to the highly industrialized food systems that often leave us vulnerable to supply chain disruptions. By rediscovering these preservation techniques, we can ensure food security in uncertain times, drawing on practices that have sustained generations before us. Equally important is the revival of community-based survival strategies. Early human survival was not just about individual strength or resourcefulness. It was about cooperation, shared knowledge, and mutual support. In ancient societies, people relied on each other for survival. They hunted in groups, shared food, and built shelters together. Today, as social fragmentation becomes more common, the need for community resilience is more critical than ever. Modern-day survivalists are embracing this spirit of cooperation by forming intentional communities, learning to work together to overcome challenges like food scarcity, resource management, and environmental degradation. These communities are grounded in ancient values of collaboration and mutual aid, providing a modern-day reflection of how survival once depended on a collective effort. One of the most significant areas where ancient wisdom is being applied today is in environmental sustainability. As we face the reality of climate change, many are turning to ancient techniques for managing natural resources. Indigenous cultures around the world have developed methods of land management, water conservation, and sustainable agriculture that have been refined over millennia. These methods, such as agroforestry, water harvesting, and rotational grazing, have allowed communities to thrive while minimizing their impact on the environment. Today, these ancient practices are being integrated into modern permaculture and sustainability movements, offering a model for how we can live more harmoniously with the earth. Additionally, modern technology is being used to rediscover and enhance ancient survival techniques. Archaeologists, scientists, and survival experts are employing cutting-edge tools like GIS mapping, climate modeling, and laboratory analysis to study ancient methods of survival. By combining modern research with traditional knowledge, they are uncovering forgotten techniques that can be applied to contemporary survival challenges. For example, researchers are investigating how ancient cultures built natural cooling systems using simple materials like stone and earth, and how these methods can be used to reduce energy consumption in modern buildings. Similarly, the revival of natural building techniques, such as cob and earthship construction, is gaining popularity as a sustainable alternative to modern housing. The connection between ancient survival wisdom and modern-day challenges is clear. These techniques were developed in response to the need for resilience in a harsh, unpredictable world. As we face similar challenges, whether environmental, social, or economic, the need for resilience is more pressing than ever. 8. The ancient wisdom of living in balance with the earth, relying on community, and using natural resources effectively offers a roadmap for how we can navigate the complexities of the modern world. The lessons learned from early human survival are not just about surviving, they are about thriving. In a time when the future often feels uncertain, the revival of these ancient methods offers a path forward, one that is deeply rooted in sustainability, self-sufficiency, and resilience. It challenges us to rethink our relationship with nature and with each other, and to explore the ways in which the survival strategies of our ancestors can guide us toward a more resilient, harmonious future. As we look to the future, it's clear that the revival of these lost survival techniques is not just about preserving ancient knowledge, it's about using that knowledge to build a better world. The next chapter will explore how this resurgence of ancient survival wisdom is shaping our future, and how the revival of these practices can help us overcome the challenges of modern life. The return to these forgotten methods may hold the key to navigating the future with resilience, adaptability, and a deep sense of connection to the world around us. Could the survival methods of our ancestors be the solution to the modern crises we face? The answer may lie in the forgotten secrets of our past. As we confront challenges such as climate change, resource depletion, and growing societal instability, it's becoming increasingly clear that the solutions to our future may not be found in new technologies or industrial advances, but in the ancient knowledge that once enabled humanity to thrive in a harsh, unpredictable world. For millennia, early humans survived without the luxuries and conveniences that we now take for granted. They lived intimately with nature, using only the tools and resources they could find. Yet, in a time when the Earth's natural systems are under increasing strain, many are beginning to look back at these ancient practices, recognizing that they may hold the key to navigating our future challenges. The survival methods of our ancestors were grounded in sustainability, resourcefulness, and an acute understanding of the environment qualities that are desperately needed in our current age of ecological collapse and growing global uncertainty. Individuals and communities around the world are already embracing these ancient methods, adapting them to modern conditions, from small-scale homesteading to large community-based sustainability initiatives. People are increasingly turning to the practices that once helped early humans survive, incorporating them into their daily lives. One example is the resurgence of permaculture farming technique rooted in natural principles that mirrors the ways early humans worked with the land rather than against it. Modern permaculturists are drawing on ancient agricultural methods such as crop rotation and water harvesting to create systems that are both environmentally sustainable and resilient to climate change. Similarly, there has been a growing movement in eco-communities and off-grid living, where people are rediscovering the ancient practices of food preservation, natural building, and self-sufficiency. Many of these individuals and groups are using knowledge passed down through generations, often from indigenous cultures, to create sustainable living spaces that rely on renewable energy, local materials, and closed-loop systems. The revival of these techniques is not only a response to modern environmental concerns, but a return to a more holistic way of living, one that reconnects people to the land and fosters a deep sense of community. In addition to these practical applications, there's a growing interest in reviving the skills of ancient survivalists, such as fire building without matches, foraging for wild food, and crafting tools from natural materials. Survival schools and training programs are emerging around the world, where people are learning to adapt the techniques of our ancestors to modern survival situations. These programs teach not only practical skills, but also the philosophy behind these practices, the understanding that survival is not just about individual resourcefulness, but also about community cooperation, respect for nature, and long-term sustainability. The importance of reviving ancient survival knowledge is especially clear when we consider the rapid pace of technological advancements in today's world. While technology has undoubtedly made life easier in many ways, it has also contributed to a growing disconnect from nature and a dependency on systems that are increasingly fragile. Our reliance on technology and industrial systems has left us vulnerable to disruptions, whether it's a natural disaster, a supply chain breakdown, or the effects of climate change. In this context, returning to ancient practices of survival offers a form of resilience that is less dependent on technology and more rooted in our connection to the natural world. By adapting these ancient survival methods to modern conditions, not simply looking back to the past for answers, finding ways to integrate timeless knowledge with the innovations of today, creating a more sustainable and resilient future. The survival wisdom of our ancestors, once thought to be obsolete, is now more relevant than ever. As we face an uncertain future, we may find that the solutions we need are not found in the latest technologies, but in the time-tested techniques that have allowed humans to endure for thousands of years. As we move forward in this exploration, the next section will focus on how these revived ancient techniques are being applied in real-world settings, from sustainable agriculture to emergency preparedness, and how they can offer hope for the future. The revival of these methods is not just about survival, it's about thriving in a world that is rapidly changing. In an age of technology and rapid advancement, it's easy to dismiss the wisdom of our ancestors. After all, we have machines, tools, and conveniences that our forebears could never have dreamed of. But what if some of their most enduring survival techniques hold secrets that we have only just begun to rediscover? What if the practices that helped humanity thrive for centuries are the very methods we need to ensure our survival in the modern world? It may seem counterintuitive, but the ancient ways of survival could be the key to not only enduring our future, but thriving in it. Consider the natural building techniques that are making a quiet resurgence. In the midst of rising environmental concerns and the quest for sustainability, builders are turning to methods that have stood the test of time. Earth, straw, and stone materials once used in ancient structures are being reimagined to create homes that are not only eco-friendly, but incredibly resilient. Rammed earth walls, cob houses, and straw bale construction are becoming more popular as the world grows increasingly aware of the strain modern building materials place on the planet. These age-old methods, forgotten for decades, are now proving to be more energy efficient and more in harmony with the earth than the concrete, glass, and steel that dominate our cities. The wisdom of the past is shaping the homes of the future-proof that survival in our modern world may lie in the simplest of materials, those that are renewable, natural, and enduring. And then, there's the forgotten art of food preservation. Long before refrigeration, our ancestors had a range of ingenious ways to keep food fresh and edible for months, if not years. Smoking, salting, fermenting, and drying were all vital techniques used by cultures across the world. Today, these ancient methods are being revived with a new sense of urgency. As we face climate change and uncertain food supplies, the need for long-term, sustainable food preservation is more pressing than ever. Whether it's fermenting vegetables to create probiotic-rich foods or drying fruits and meats to ensure supply through the harshest seasons, these techniques are not only practical, they are a bridge to a more sustainable future. What was once old is now the cutting edge of modern survivalism. The modern survivalist movement, which blends the old and the new, is gaining momentum. People who seek self-sufficiency are turning to the tools of the past to carve out a life that is less dependent on the fragile systems of modern society. From creating their own water filtration systems to cultivating food in small, personal gardens, these individuals are breathing new life into ancient survival skills. They are discovering that the secrets to a stable, sustainable future are not locked away in high-tech gadgets, but are waiting to be unearthed in the wisdom of our ancestors. This marriage of ancient knowledge and modern ingenuity is not just about survival, it's about thriving. It's by looking back to move forward. We are learning how to live in a way that is both innovative and rooted in the practices that kept us alive long before we had the luxury of modern conveniences as we face an increasingly uncertain future. These techniques are not just methods of survival, they are keys to a way of life that might very well be the key to our collective future. The past, it seems, may hold the answers to our future as we turn our attention to the broader implications of these rediscoveries. We begin to see that it's not just about learning how to survive it, it's about learning how to live sustainably. The revival of lost survival techniques holds the potential to reshape humanity's future. But how exactly will this knowledge change the course of history? In the rush of the modern world, where technology advances at an unprecedented pace, it's easy to forget the timeless wisdom that once ensured survival. Yet, all around the globe, something remarkable is unfolding. A cultural renaissance of ancient survival practices. The tools, techniques, and ways of life that were once indispensable for survival are being rediscovered, reimagined, and integrated into the fabric of contemporary society. What was once relegated to the past, to a time before industrialization and convenience, is now seen as a pathway to a more sustainable, self-sufficient, and harmonious way of living. This resurgence isn't just a passing trend, it's a response to a world that is increasingly connected from the natural rhythms of the earth. At the heart of this revival is the growing movement towards bushcraft, wilderness, survival, and sustainable living. These practices, once relegated to a niche group of enthusiasts, are now finding their place in the mainstream. More people are taking to the woods, learning how to build shelters from natural materials, start fires with flint, and forage for edible plants. The fascination with primitive technologies, such as flint, knapping, and stone tools, is no longer limited to museums or archaeological studies. They are being revived by modern survivalists who see these techniques not as relics of a bygone era, but as invaluable skills for navigating an uncertain future. What is truly remarkable about this cultural shift is how it's being linked to a larger movement toward eco-consciousness. As concerns about environmental degradation, climate change, and unsustainable resource use grow. Many are seeking alternatives to the modern, consumer-driven lifestyle. The principles of ancient survival practices, living off the land, respecting natural cycles, and using what's available resonate deeply with those who are trying to live in balance with nature. It's not just about surviving in the wild. It's about reconnecting with the earth in a meaningful way. It's cultivating a deeper understanding of the world around us. Take foraging, for example. In ancient times, humans relied on their knowledge of plants, fungi, and animals to feed themselves. Today, this knowledge is being revived in a new generation of foragers. They are rediscovering the bounty that nature provides, learning how to harvest wild foods in sustainable ways that preserve ecosystems for future generations. This isn't just about survival, it's about building a relationship with the land, understanding the cycles of growth and decay, and living in harmony with the environment. In an age of industrial farming and processed foods, this return to wild food sources offers a profound sense of connection and self-reliance. Equally fascinating is a resurgence of interest in natural shelter structures made from materials like wood, stone, and earth, rather than concrete and steel. These shelters aren't just about creating a roof over one's head. They represent a way of life that is more integrated with the environment. Whether it's a simple earth shelter, a thatched roof cabin, or a modern adaptation of a traditional dwelling, these homes are often built using techniques that have been honed over thousands of years. They are not only energy efficient, but they embody a philosophy of living that values sustainability over consumption, as more people seek alternatives to conventional housing. These natural shelters are offering a glimpse into a future where human habitation is once again in harmony with the landscape. The growing interest in these practices is more than a fleeting trend. It's a reflection of a deeper cultural shift. It's about reclaiming the knowledge that has been passed down through generations. It's knowledge that was once vital for survival, but has been lost or forgotten in the march of progress. It's about looking to the past to find solutions for the challenges of the present and future. In this way, ancient survival practices are no longer just a matter of survival. They are a powerful symbol of resilience, sustainability, and a way of life that respects both the land and the people who inhabit it. As we stand on the brink of a new era, it's clear that this cultural renaissance is only just beginning. The techniques and philosophies of our ancestors are being rediscovered, adapted, and integrated into contemporary society in ways that are both practical and meaningful. These practices are not just about surviving in a world that is rapidly changing. They are about thriving in a world that is reconnecting with its roots. The question now is not whether these ancient ways will endure, but how they will shape the future of humanity. This revival of ancient survival practices is a reminder that, in the quest for progress, we must not forget the lessons of the past. As we explore the broader implications of this movement, it becomes clear that these practices have the potential to transform not only the way we live, also the way we think about our place in the world. What was once old may soon become the foundation for the future, guiding us toward a more sustainable, resilient, and harmonious way of life. As the world grapples with unprecedented challenges, climate change, dwindling resources, and the fragility of modern social structures, the question arises: what if the answers to these crises were not found in the latest technological innovation, but in the timeless practices of our ancestors? Ancient survival techniques, often viewed as relics of a bygone era, are now being re-examined as potential blueprints for a more resilient and sustainable future. In a world increasingly defined by uncertainty, these forgotten practices may hold the key to navigating the turbulent waters ahead. Imagine, for a moment, the wisdom embedded in the ways our ancestors survived. They lived in balance with nature, adapting to their environment rather than trying to conquer it. From the careful management of resources to the art of building shelters from materials that were both local and sustainable. Ancient peoples understood the delicate balance necessary for long-term survival. Their survival was not just about surviving in the moment. It was about ensuring that their way of life could persist for generations. This long-term perspective is something that modern society, with its fast-paced consumption and reliance on finite resources, has largely forgotten. The return to ancient survival knowledge could provide a framework for humanity to shift back toward this sustainable mindset. Take, for example, the practice of natural resource management. In ancient societies, resources were not treated as commodities to be extracted until exhausted. Instead, there was a deep understanding of cycles, whether it was the cycles of the seasons, the growth patterns of plants, or the rhythms of animal populations. These practices were based on an inherent understanding that resources were finite and that sustainable use was essential for future generations. This concept, largely absent in today's extractive industries, could provide valuable lessons as we face the looming threat of resource depletion. Moreover, many ancient survival strategies were deeply rooted in community and cooperation. In times of hardship, it was not the individual who thrived, but the collective. Knowledge was passed down through generations, shared freely among all members of the community, ensuring that no one was left without the skills needed to survive. In the face of modern social instability, where divisions are growing deeper and trust in institutions is dwindling, this emphasis on community-based survival could provide a model for resilience. It suggests that true survival in the face of environmental or societal collapse may depend not just on individual skill or wealth, but on the strength of the bonds between people. Consider also the techniques of food preservation that ancient cultures perfected. From drying and fermenting to smoking and salting, these methods were not only ways to store food for lean times, they were also expressions of a culture deeply connected to the land. These ancient methods offer a crucial insight into how we can prepare for an uncertain future. In the face of potential crop failures, supply chain disruptions, or global conflicts, The ability to preserve food naturally could become an essential skill for modern societies. Learning these methods could help individuals and communities withstand periods of scarcity and increase their independence from industrial food systems, which are often fragile and vulnerable. Though these practices may seem primitive by today's standards, they are, in many ways, more in tune with the rhythms of nature than the high-tech solutions we often rely on. They teach us to respect the land, to understand the cycles that govern life, and to live within our means. In embracing these ancient skills, we may be better equipped to face the unknown challenges of the future, not just by surviving, but by thriving in harmony with the natural world. This return to ancient survival knowledge is not a retreat into the past, it is a step forward. One that could provide humanity with the tools to create a more resilient and sustainable future. As we prepare for the uncertainties ahead, we must look not just to the latest technological advances, but to the wisdom of those who have survived and thrived in far more challenging times. The survival wisdom of our ancestors may very well be the blueprint we need to navigate the complexities of the future. It's offering a path forward that is grounded in balance, sustainability, and cooperation. As we reflect on the practical implications of these ancient survival practices, we begin to see that their revival is not just a nostalgic return to simpler times. It is a crucial step in rethinking our relationship with the world around us. The question now is not how we can continue along the same path we've been on, but how we can learn from the past to build a future that is more sustainable, more resilient, and more in tune with the earth. As the modern world continues its relentless march toward technological progress, many of us find ourselves disconnected from the earth that sustains us. We are surrounded by conveniences and distractions, but something profound seems to be missing. The ancient survival techniques that once guided humanity's existence, ensuring that each generation could thrive in balance with nature, are slowly fading into obscurity. Yet, in the quiet rediscovery of these practices, there's a potential for something much greater than just survival. Reclaiming the wisdom of our ancestors could be the key to restoring not only our physical resilience, but also our spiritual and cultural connection to the world around us. For thousands of years, humanity existed within the rhythms of nature. We lived with the land, understood its cycles, and adapted to its challenges. The knowledge passed down through generations was not just about how to survive, was about how to live in harmony with the earth. The very act of foraging, building shelters, or managing resources was an expression of a deep, intimate relationship with the environment. These skills were not learned from books or technology. They were absorbed from the land itself, shaped by the land's wisdom and the understanding that everything is interconnected. In today's world, however, this connection has been severed. We've become consumers rather than stewards, spectators of nature rather than participants in its cycle. Modern life, with all its comforts and distractions, has made it easy to forget that our survival depends not just on technology, but on the ecosystems that support us. We are more connected to our devices than to the earth beneath our feet. And in this disconnection, we lose not only our survival skills, but also our sense of purpose and identity. We have forgotten that true survival isn't just about existing, it's about living meaningfully, with intention and respect for the world that sustains us. Reconnecting with ancient survival practices offers a path forward. It is not simply a nostalgic return to simpler times, but a reawakening of a lost wisdom that can guide us through the complexities of the modern world. Imagine a future where humans are not just passive consumers of the planet's resources, but active participants in its stewardship. A future where we live sustainably, using the knowledge of our ancestors to guide our choices, where survival isn't just about avoiding disaster, but about thriving in balance with the world around us. But what does it mean to truly survive? In many ways, our ancestors understood survival in a more holistic sense than we do today. Survival was not just about meeting basic physical needs. It was about ensuring that life could continue, that future generations could thrive. It was about creating a life that was in tune with the land, one that was based on respect, reciprocity, and resilience. This philosophy is something we have largely lost in our modern pursuit of progress. But perhaps, as we look to the future, we must ask ourselves, is survival merely about enduring? Or is it about living with a deeper sense of purpose, a connection to the earth, and an understanding of the delicate balance that sustains all life? This is where the wisdom of our ancestors becomes invaluable. It teaches us that survival is not a solitary endeavor. It is something that must be done in partnership with the earth and with each other. The knowledge of how to build natural shelters, harvest food from the land, and use resources sustainably is not just practical, it is deeply philosophical. It reminds us that we are not separate from nature, but part of a larger whole. When we embrace this wisdom, we shift our perspective. We stop seeing nature as something to conquer and begin to see it as something to respect and nurture. This shift in perspective also brings with it a renewed sense of identity. In a world where so many feel lost or adrift, returning to ancient practices can restore a sense of belonging. By reconnecting with the land and the wisdom passed down through generations, we reclaim a sense of continuity and purpose that transcends the fleeting concerns of modern life. We rediscover our place in the world, not as conquerors of nature, but as humble stewards of the earth. Its key to a sustainable future lies in blending the ancient with the modern. We are not advocating for a return to an entirely pre-industrial way of life, but rather a synthesis of old and new. Modern innovation can complement ancient knowledge, helping us to solve today's problems while maintaining a deep respect for the wisdom of the past. Imagine combining the sustainability of ancient building techniques with the energy efficiency of modern technologies, or using traditional food preservation methods alongside contemporary food storage innovations. This fusion could lead to a future where we not only survive, but thrive living in harmony with nature and with each other. Yet, as we consider this path forward, it's important to reflect on what it means to truly survive. Survival is not simply about overcoming immediate challenges. It is about creating a life that is sustainable, fulfilling, and connected. It's about rediscovering a sense of purpose in the rhythms of the natural world, where survival is not a constant battle, but a delicate balance between human need and environmental health. By embracing our ancestors' wisdom, we can learn how to live, not just in the world, but with the world. As we conclude this journey through the rediscovery of ancient survival knowledge, we are reminded that the path forward is not just about technology or progress. It's about balance. It's about reawakening the wisdom that has been passed down through generations. It's wisdom that can guide us toward a future where humanity lives in harmony with the earth. Our ancestors understood that survival was more than just a physical act. It was a way of life. And perhaps, as we face the challenges of the future, key is this understanding that will lead us toward a more resilient, sustainable, and meaningful existence. In the end, reclaiming our ancestors' wisdom is not just about learning how to survive it. It's about learning how to live with intention, with purpose, and with respect for the world that sustains us. It is a path forward that holds the potential to not only restore our connection with the earth, but also to restore our humanity. In the wisdom of the past, we find the keys to a future that is both sustainable and spiritually fulfilling, a future where survival is not simply about existing, but about thriving in harmony with the natural world. In a world that constantly looks forward, obsessed with innovation and the promise of new technologies, there is a quiet revolution taking place, movement that is rediscovering the ancient wisdom of our ancestors. This resurgence of interest in lost survival techniques isn't just a trend. It's the beginning of a new era, one that seeks to blend the best of the past with the opportunities of the future. In a time when environmental degradation, resource scarcity, and social instability threaten our way of life, the techniques that once ensured our survival are emerging as crucial keys to navigating the uncertain future ahead. The lessons learned from these ancient survival practices are not merely historical curiosities. They are practical, actionable knowledge that can help us live more sustainably today. From the simplest techniques of fire starting and foraging to the complex systems of natural resource management, These methods offer profound insights into how we can live in harmony with the earth. They remind us that survival is not just about technology and gadgets, but about understanding our environment and learning to live within its rhythms. The connection our ancestors had with the land was not one of exploitation, but of respect that allowed them to not only survive, but thrive for generations. As we confront the challenges of modern life, this ancient wisdom can offer a lifeline, guiding us back toward a more balanced, harmonious way of living. PP. What is perhaps most striking about this movement is its global reach. What began as a niche interest among survivalists and environmentalists is now spreading across cultures and borders. In urban centers and remote villages alike, people are coming together to relearn the skills that once ensured humanity's survival. There is a growing recognition that the key to a sustainable future lies not in technological solutions alone, but in a return to the simple, effective practices that have withstood the test of time. The skills of our ancestors are being revived, passed down through workshops, online communities, and grassroots organizations. From natural building techniques to wild food foraging, these ancient methods are becoming integral parts of a modern cultural renaissance focused on sustainability, self-sufficiency, and a deep connection to the environment. PP. This cultural shift is more than a response to current crises. It is a profound change in mindset. It's a realization that our current path, one dominated by consumption and unsustainable growth, is no longer viable. The rediscovery of ancient survival techniques signals a collective yearning for a deeper, more meaningful connection to the world we inhabit. This movement is not just about learning old skills. It's about reevaluating our place in the world and redefining what it means to live well. It's about embracing a mindset that values sustainability over convenience, resilience over excess, and community over isolation. PP. But this revival is just the beginning. The techniques and practices that are being rediscovered today have the potential to spark a global shift of movement toward a future where humanity is once again in balance with the earth. The knowledge of our ancestors, far from being outdated, holds the answers to many of the most pressing challenges we face today. As more people embrace this ancient wisdom, we may see a transformation not just in individual lives, but in entire communities and societies. The rediscovery of survival techniques is not just a return to the past, okay? It is a pathway to a more sustainable, self-sufficient, and environmentally conscious future, okay? In this new era of rediscovery, we stand at a crossroads. The practices we are reclaiming today offer more than survival. They offer a chance to redefine what it means to thrive. As we look to the future, we must ask ourselves, how can we integrate the wisdom of the past with the innovations of the present? What if the future of survival isn't found in new technologies, but in the timeless knowledge of our ancestors? The answers may not be found in the next breakthrough invention, but in the practices that have helped humanity endure for millennia. PP. As this global movement gains momentum, it is clear that the rediscovery of ancient survival techniques could mark the beginning of a new chapter in human history, one in which sustainability, self-sufficiency, and environmental stewardship are at the forefront of our collective consciousness. And in this chapter, the knowledge of the past will not just be a survival tool, it will be a guiding force for creating a future that is both sustainable, and deeply connected to the earth. This movement, still in its early stages, holds the potential to change the world, one rediscovered practice at a time. PP. Greater than. As we move forward, embracing this ancient wisdom will not be a step backward, but a powerful leap forward, a step toward a world where we live, not just for the present, but for the future of all life on earth. The path we take from here will shape the legacy we leave behind. Will we continue down a path of short-term thinking, or will we embrace the timeless lessons of survival that have guided humanity for centuries? The choice, it seems, is ours to make. The rediscovery of these ancient techniques is not just an exploration of the past, it's a vital part of shaping the future. And in that future, the wisdom of our ancestors may hold the keys to survival, not just physically, but in every aspect of our lives. Greater than P. What if survival isn't just about making it through? What if survival is about truly living, not merely existing, but thriving in every sense of the word? In the face of modern challenges, we often define survival as the act of enduring, of simply getting by. But perhaps the greatest lesson we can learn from the rediscovery of ancient survival techniques is that survival is about far more than just physical endurance. It's about reconnecting with the deeper aspects of life, our spiritual, social, and environmental connections, embracing a way of living that nurtures all parts of our being. Throughout this documentary, we have explored ancient survival practices that helped our ancestors navigate the harshest of environments. These methods, from fire starting to foraging to shelter building, were not just about staying alive. They were about thriving in the world around them. They embodied an understanding that survival doesn't only mean enduring the elements or avoiding death. True survival, as our ancestors knew it, was about living in balance with nature, fostering community, and cultivating resilience in the face of adversity. Survival was not a solitary struggle, but a communal experience, shared responsibility for the well-being of both individuals and the collective. This perspective on survival is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a profound reflection on what it means to be human. In a world where we are increasingly disconnected from the natural world, where technology often isolates us from each other, and where the pressures of modern life strain our mental and emotional health, it's easy to lose sight of the deeper aspects of survival. We may have the physical tools to survive, but do we have the wisdom to live well? The survival techniques we have uncovered throughout this journey are not just tools for surviving harsh conditions. They are pathways to rediscovering what it means to be truly alive. They offer a chance to reconnect with the land, to understand our place in the world, and to build a sense of community and shared purpose. Whether it's learning to live off the land, building sustainable homes, cultivating a deeper connection with nature, these practices are an invitation to live more consciously, more purposefully, and more harmoniously with the world around us. True survival is not simply about overcoming obstacles. It's about the way we respond to them. It's about finding meaning in adversity and cultivating strength not just in the body, but in the mind and spirit as well. It's about understanding that our survival is not isolated from the well-being of others, nor is it separate from the health of the planet. The knowledge of our ancestors reminds us that we are all interconnected. Our survival is inextricably linked to the land, the air, the water, and to one another. When we live in harmony with nature, when we cultivate our resilience, not just as individuals, but as part of a larger community, we open the door to a deeper, more fulfilling form of survival. As we face the challenges of the future, climate change, social instability, resource scarcity, can be easy to feel helpless, as if survival is a matter of merely holding on. But perhaps the answers we seek are not found in the newest technologies or in the rush for more, but in the wisdom of the past. The techniques, values, and philosophies that sustained our ancestors are not relics. They are a vital part of our survival toolkit for the modern world. In embracing these ancient practices, we are not merely looking back, we are looking forward. We are rediscovering a way of life that has the potential to help us thrive, not just physically, but spiritually and socially. Survival, in this sense, becomes a holistic experience, journey toward a life of balance, resilience, and deep connection. It is a path that leads us not just to endure, but to truly live in harmony with the world around us. As we conclude this exploration of survival, let us remember that the true essence of survival is not found in mere existence. It is found in how we live, in how we connect with each other, and in how we honor the earth that sustains us. The answers to the greatest survival questions may lie not in what we've invented, but in the wisdom of the past, wisdom that, if embraced, can guide us toward a future where survival is not about just getting by, but about truly thriving. The survival wisdom of the past is more than just a relic of history. It's a key to unlocking our future. Throughout this documentary, we've uncovered a wealth of knowledge that was once vital to human survival, which has been largely forgotten in the rush of modern progress. As we look to the future, it's clear that these ancient techniques may hold the answers to many of the challenges we face today, from sustainable living practices to community resilience. The survival strategies of our ancestors offer profound insights into how we can live in balance with the world around us. The question now is, will we embrace this wisdom, or will we continue to forge ahead without learning from the lessons of the past? This journey has taken us deep into the heart of ancient survival knowledge, how our ancestors built their homes, harvested food, and thrived in environments that were often harsh and unforgiving. Yet, their wisdom wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving. It was about understanding the natural world and living in harmony with it. These techniques were not born of a desire to conquer nature, but of a deep respect for it. They were methods of survival that ensured sustainability, fostered community, and encouraged a way of life that was connected to the rhythms of the earth. As we've explored, these techniques are not just historical artifacts. They are vital tools for today. In a world where we face climate change, resource depletion, and social instability, these survival strategies offer us a lifeline, a way forward that doesn't rely on technology alone, but on a return to the principles of balance, self-sufficiency, and respect for nature. From natural building to food preservation, the knowledge of our ancestors is more relevant now than ever before. And the most remarkable thing is that this knowledge is still accessible. With a little effort, we can begin to incorporate these ancient practices into our modern lives, using them to build a more sustainable future for ourselves and for future generations. But perhaps the most important takeaway from this documentary is the reminder that survival is not just about enduring it. It's about living meaningfully. True survival is about thriving spiritually, socially, and environmentally. It's about reconnecting with the earth, our communities, and our sense of purpose. By embracing ancient survival knowledge, we not only learn how to survive in a changing world, but we also rediscover what it means to be human. We understand that we are not separate from nature, but an integral part of it. And when we live with that understanding, survival becomes less about mere existence and more about living in harmony with everything around us. As we close this exploration, it's clear that the path forward is not about rejecting progress, but about integrating the wisdom of the past with the innovations of the present. The knowledge of our ancestors is a vital part of that integration. It's a call to reawaken our survival instincts, not just in terms of physical endurance, but in terms of how we live, how we connect with each other, and how we care for the earth. By doing so, we can begin to create a future where survival is not a constant struggle, but a peaceful, balanced, and fulfilling way of life. The survival wisdom of the past is more than just a tool for enduring hardship. It's a path toward a more meaningful existence. If we embrace it, if we incorporate it into our lives and our communities, we can reshape the future, one that is sustainable, resilient, and in harmony with the natural world. The choice is ours. Will we embrace the wisdom of our ancestors, or will we continue down a path of unchecked progress? The future depends on the answer we choose.